Welcome back to Chapter 12. This video starts with Section 3, and it talks about passing file stream objects to functions. Now, as we talked about before, when we're developing code, we want to start using functions. This makes our code reusable, and these functions can be used in different places in our code. And we want to make them two major things, right? We want to make sure our functions do one thing and do it very well. That's kind of that one use rule. We also want to make them somewhat independent, and that allows us to use these functions in different areas of our code for slightly different scenarios. The file stream object is a good example. You may want to have a function that, let's say, opens a file, or maybe we make a function that writes something to a file, a piece of data. Maybe we make a function that we pass in the file stream object as well as a data table, and that function is to take that data table, format it correctly, and then write it out to the file. By passing the file stream object in, we can use that function now to write data to our file or to different files. Maybe we have 4 files open and we want to write to 4 different files, right? By using that one function, as long as we're passing the file stream in, we don't have to write code within our function to do different things for different files. It doesn't care what file stream you hand it. You hand me a file stream, I will take that data and write to that file stream. So that's why it's really useful to be able to pass file stream objects to functions. Now, when you're doing this, you will have to always remember to pass your function. Let's get my neat little handy pin by reference. By reference. Make sure you're always passing it by reference. So here's an example of some code that does just that. In fact, if we go and look at the second piece here, this is where they are passing in by reference a file stream. This type is known, this is the F stream type. And what's it doing? Well, it's doing just like we had talked about originally. It's actually opening the file. So that's exactly what it's doing. So this is a good example. And then up here, by the way, so you can see that we create the F stream. And here is where we pass the information. We pass this into the data file with the name. Come on. With the name. And our function, like I said, then does the logic to open that file. Now with this, like I said, if we somewhere here down in our main, we wanted to open several files. Well, instead of writing this code multiple times for each time we want to open a file, and because we can pass in an F stream or any kind of F stream stream into this, then we could open multiple files with just this one line and a new F stream object every single time. All right. So some more details about error testing. It's really important, again, when you're talking about file streams, that you are making sure that you're checking for errors. There's a whole list of things that can go wrong when it comes to working with IO streams and any kind of file manipulation, opening files, even if it's, think about what can go wrong. If you have a hard drive that goes bad or the file doesn't exist, maybe the directory doesn't exist. Nowadays, when we start to write files, sometimes it's across the internet. Maybe it's a file in the cloud, but to us, it looks like a file with a path to a hard drive, but it's actually writing it across the network. Any of those things can go wrong. And so when you're opening files, when you're writing files, you want to make sure you're always checking for failures. Here is a common list of failures that we definitely want to make sure we're looking for. So the end of file bit is there. This is one of the more common ones we're going to look for, right? And that's when we get to the end of the file. This particular flag gets set when an operation fails. And then, when you have an error that occurs and there's no recovery, oftentimes like a hard disk failure or something like that, you're going to get this kind of flag. And then when invalid operation is attempted, so maybe you try to uh, write to a file that is marked on the file system as read only. And believe it or not, this flag is great to just do a quick check to see if there's any errors kind of risen with these bits. So, along with these, we also have a set of methods that we can call on that does check for a lot of these. Some of them will check more than one bit and return whether there is an issue or not. And then we can also clear these bits so we can try again. So, with that program that we were just looking at, this is a function that has been created to check a file, an fstream buffer. It's going to check to see if there's any issues, and it's going to output it. So here we go. So it's checking if the end of file bit is set or the fail bit is set. And again, remember on the fail bit does both the fail bit and the hard fail. The bad bit and then the good bit. And then in this case, at the end, we're going ahead and clearing them. Now in this section, 12.5, this is kind of where we start getting into actually using these files. So we have talked about how to set up a stream. Ooh. Oh, come on. We're setting a stream. We're also talking about how to open a stream. And now we're going to actually make use of it. We're going to read and we're going to write. So, what functions do we have for reading and writing? Some of these are going to look pretty similar. We already know what getLine does. We've used it with our console in. It does the same thing with the file. We can also do a get and a put. This is, as you can see, for single characters. So the getLine function. You have the ability to do it in two different ways. Here we go. So this is getLine. This is your file stream object. This is the string object. And then if you would like, you can add this third parameter, which is a delimiter. Now, what is the delimiter? And the real way to understand it is that last statement. So the get line, by its nature, what you're saying is, hey, get me the next line, right? Get me the line that you're sitting at and read it into my string object. Well, when we don't add this character right here, it's going to assume the new line character. But what if you have a file that instead of reading and each line in, maybe you want to read in each tab in? Well, again, it will act the same way, but instead of looking for each line, it's going to look for each tab and read that in and then stop at the tab. So, number one, we declare our streams. Number 2, we open our streams. Now, by the way, what's the real problem here? Do we know if there's any errors? And here, we are saying get line. But because we only used 2 parameters, it's automatically assumed for get line that the third parameter is the new line. Now, you should remember from our previous semester, this function, let me go back to this. We're going to do that. This section is priming the loop. Why is that important? Because we want to read that first line in. That's that first line. And now we're going to go into a while loop. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. That while loop. And we're going to use what was primed. And now we are going to display it and get the next line. And keep doing that. But to do that, we had to prime it with that first line. If, by the way, on this prime, there was nothing in the file, it would have gotten to this while statement and never have gone through. It would have jumped right out to the most important thing. I say that all the time, I know. The most important thing. Let's see here. So number 3 is us actually utilizing the stream, and we cannot ever forget number 4, close that stream. I cannot tell you enough about that. Close the stream. This is how people lose a lot of points. Now, beyond that, we can utilize the get and the put, and it's going to read one character at a time or write one character at a time. And you tend not to use this that often, but you will. There are times where getting character by character is great. I have done code where I wanted something that would read really, really fast, and it kind of have like this internal buffer where I'd read in a group of characters, do some analysis on it, and then essentially forget about them. So I could do some good memory management. And that was a great place where I used the get and the put. But again, the important piece is that it's single character. All right, so we're going to stop here. And on the next video, we will talk about working with multiple files. It's Professor Waits, and I'll see you on the next video.